What if I told you everything you knew about textbooks, lectures, and traditional study methods was wrong and is only making things worse? I used to think the same thing until I discovered that simply testing myself, even before studying, was drastically more effective than rereading notes. This method flipped my academic life upside down, boosting my grades and, surprisingly, freeing up my time. I'm going to show you how I made active recall work. The key to making active recall work for me was implementing 4 specific techniques. The first technique I used was self-testing. Instead of passively rereading my notes or textbook, I started testing myself regularly on the material. This strengthens the memory retrieval pathways in your brain. To do this, I began using flashcards, practice questions, or simply covering my notes and trying to recall the information. For example, after reading a chapter about the cardiovascular system, I tried to list all the major blood vessels and their functions without looking at my notes. The second technique is the question-answer method. I began forming questions about the material and then actively answering them. This encourages active engagement with the subject matter and leads to a deeper understanding. I would turn headings and subheadings from my textbook into questions and then answer them in my own words. For example, instead of just reading the definition of mitosis, I'd ask myself, what are the different stages of mitosis and what happens in each stage? The third technique involved teaching others or using the Feynman technique. Explaining a concept to someone else really highlights any gaps in your understanding and forces you to simplify complex topics. I would try explaining a concept to a friend, family member, or even an imaginary audience. For example, I explained the concept of supply and demand to someone who has never taken an economics class, just to see if I could. Lastly, I implemented spaced repetition. This involves reviewing material at increasing intervals. This optimizes memory consolidation and combats the forgetting curve. I began using flashcard apps or creating a study schedule that revisits previously learned material. For example, I'd review my notes on the French Revolution 1 day after the lecture, then 3 days later, then a week later, and so on. Now, it's important to remember that active recall isn't a magic bullet and might not work for everyone or for every subject. Tailoring techniques to individual learning styles and subject matter is super important. The ideal technique for active recall also depends on the subject. These techniques might work better for biology and chemistry than calculus. While this video has shown you how to improve learning using active recall, it hasn't covered aspects such as how active recall could be implemented in various environments, or how motivation and consistency affect learning, and how to handle cognitive overload when using these techniques. Try these techniques out and share your experiences in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more awesome learning tips. Stay tuned for future videos where we will discuss things like time management and note-taking strategies.